All right. Nothing better than when your host sometimes drops out for technical problems. So, all right, before we get started, I have to read a quick disclaimer. The content of this summit is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide any specific tax, accounting, legal, or other investment advice, or provide the basis for any financial or investment decisions. You should always consult with a licensed professional to seek advice specific to your own situation. Now, before we get started, I do want to talk about some of the calls that are coming up, but I didn't have that on my screen. So we're going to talk about our current guest here in a second, and then coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, John is going to be interviewing Andrew Hewitt. And then John's got another interview at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern with TJ Matai and Chris Tadao. You want to catch those interviews. John has got some great questions for those. So let's jump into our session here. So welcome back to the Future of Money, the world's largest online cryptocurrency summit. I'm Roger Bryan. I'm an investor. I'm the founder of the Digital Currency Index and also of Block Insights. And I'm a co-host and co-producer of the event today. For my next presenter, we're going to be talking with Warren Kritko. We've got some great stuff to talk to you about today. We had an awesome conversation right before this interview. So stick around, grab a pad of paper and a pencil. This is not going to be a dry conversation. He's going to be dropping some knowledge bombs about his university, and I'm super excited to have him. Before I introduce him, though, let me mention that on this page, you'll see a button for the Cryptocurrency Training Kit. It's a special offer during the summit to get you over 40 hours of talks, 25 plus speaker bonuses, and a program called the Cryptocurrency Mastery Program. The regular price is $497, but you can secure that now for just $297. It's the most comprehensive training package in the market, so take advantage of that offer now. Now, let me introduce our guest, Warren Kritko. Warren is a serial entrepreneur who had an early introduction to Bitcoin in 2011. After investing in and researching every aspect of the blockchain and cryptocurrency, it was evident that a trusted funnel of education was greatly lacking from the space. From a young age, Warren has always been passionate about creating jobs for people that are stuck in the rat race. After comprehending the full potential of cryptocurrency and blockchain, he founded Crypto University, which he's going to be giving you a special offer with later in the call. The idea of bringing a financial revolution to the world is what fuels his passion to take on a more creative world, to educate the world on what freedom is and hand for those that are willing to grab it. Warren is going to be talking to us today about going from zero to crypto, which is something that can happen wicked fast these days. He's going to cover everything that he's learned, and we're going to kind of do it in like a shotgun Q&A that him and I have outlined right before this call. He's going to talk about some of his pitfalls. We've all had them. He's going to talk about some of his triumphs. His are huge. And at the end of the talk, we're going to let you know how you can access some important free resources from Warren, so you can make sure to stick around to the end of the call. Now, Warren, before I even ask you to say hello to everybody, I'm going to jump right in with the first question that we're asking every one of our speakers, because coming out of our pre-interview interview, I'm kind of hot to get into the Q&A with you. So we're asking everyone to share their perspective on this one question. How do you think crypto will influence the future of money in the world? What's your perspective?
Yeah, well, I feel that it already is. I mean, just from payment remittances to, sending money back and forth in between different countries. I mean, it's really doing a lot right now. I mean, you're already seeing it happen. I mean, PayPal, I think that we're finding ways to do without them. We're figuring out ways to go around the different banks, and we can lower all of these different fees in between each one of these transactions. I think it's a great benefit for everyone, and it's definitely going to impact money in that way. Okay,
now that we've dove in, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Here at Atlanta Tech Village, here is where our corporate headquarters is. So we're just kind of hanging out here on a Sunday. There's not too many people behind us, but it's great.
That's in Buckhead, correct?
Yeah, right here in the center of Buckhead.
Great area. I was down there last summer. In fact, I might have been in your building then. So we'll talk about that offline, though.
Sure.
All right. So we're going to talk about everything that you've learned, pitfalls and triumphs. Now, usually we ask you to give an overview of that, but I think we've got some good questions outlined around those topics. So let's start with, how did you first get into crypto?
Yeah, so I was first introduced to crypto back in 2010, 2011 from my younger brother. He was about 4 years younger than me, and I guess he was ahead of the curve. But, he had originally came in and bought some Bitcoin, added it to his portfolio. Next thing you know, he woke up, was like 2 or 3x in what it was worth. And he called me up. He's like, hey, you got to get some of this Bitcoin. And I didn't even really know what the heck it was, but I did come over to the house. He did show it to me. It seemed very confusing, but very intriguing at the same time. That was my first initial take on it.
Now, how did you get from, and we're going to talk about Crypto University throughout the entire call, so give me kind of the big picture. How did you get from that moment 4 or 5 years ago to starting Crypto University? Like, what motivated you to create Crypto University?
Sure. Well, there was a few different things that happened. I ended up meeting my now wife. I went to California, met with an interesting person, Judd Wise. He was actually one of John McAfee's running mates for the Libertarian ticket in the last election. He had just told me, he's like, hey, you should really take a look at Bitcoin. He's like, there's a lot of potential that's there, and you could set yourself up great, for the future of your family. And so I just took that advice. My wife and I ended up taking a solar position up in Connecticut. So we moved up there collectively, started reading more about Bitcoin, and at that point kind of just plunged in and started my portfolio. I was buying Bitcoin pretty much on a week in and week out basis and watching it grow. And then I just dove into it. And the hardest part about crypto is learning it all. You go onto the sites to Google, you type in Bitcoin or what is Bitcoin, what is crypto, and you get thousands of pages of people's explanations as to what that is.
And you get thousands of bullshit responses and bad information too.
Exactly, 100%. And that's where I found myself caught. It's that, here I am wanting to buy Bitcoin, but everything I'm reading online is such mixed reviews. Don't buy it. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a scam. And I it was just really hard to be able to determine the difference of the types of information that was out there and understand if any of it was actually true. And so that was really a hard thing for me, because then, after you get into just wanting to purchase crypto and you go through that learning curve of understanding what altcoins are, you typically might find yourself in mining. Well, that's a whole nother world. And when you go on Google and start to learn about mining, they say it's no longer profitable. There's no way, all of the equipment is being obsolete. So it's almost scaring you away. But, at that point, I just started to jump into it and to say, heck, you know what, I'm going to just do this. If nothing else, I've learned the hard way so many times in my life. Why not just give this one another one? So I went out and bought my first miner. I remember when I first got that miner, I didn't even have a 220 outlet for it. I was sitting there with a 110 regular computer cord hanging out the back of it, trying to plug it into our high-rise apartment we had in Connecticut. And it wasn't working. I was getting a little small fan to spin, but that was about it. And anyway, once I figured it out, read the instructions, got a 220 installed at the house, it started going. Now here I am, I'm up and mining. But the thing that I found out is even after that first month, I was profitable. And so, after being profitable at something that the internet had basically tried to deter me from, I realized that I needed to dig further down the rabbit hole and to really realize that there are people out there that are intentionally trying to misinform you for their better. Hey, if there's less people mining and I'm the only person mining, that makes a lot more sense. So those are some of the things I came across with earlier.
Yeah, you talked about mining for a second. I know in the conversation we had before the call, you and your team are kind of involved in a lot of different strategies. Can you talk about some of your different investing strategies in this space, and maybe think about it from the audience's perspective as you're telling us about those? Because there's people sitting there today that have not even tipped their toes in the water yet. There are people that are head deep into the 10-foot end of the pool. What are your strategies, and what are some advice you can give to people about these strategies?
Sure. Well, when I first got into Bitcoin, that was all I had. And so it was pretty easy. It's either going up or it's going down. And so it's not too hard there. If you're not trying to get into day trading, you're just looking for something simple, I think that Bitcoin is a good investment long-term and real easy to partake in, get a wallet, get it set up, forget about it, and come back a year later. I promise you'll be happy. For me, though, as far as my investment portfolio, I think that having Bitcoin and some of the other large cap coins like Ethereum, ones that have an established network, that have, thousands of nodes all around the world that are truly decentralized. Those are important. Have a few of those in your portfolio. That's what I did. Outside of that, I have probably about 10 to 15% that are in some altcoins, whether it's some of the top projects that we're seeing out there now, people that are consistently hitting the roadmaps, projections on their roadmap. I have about 10 to 15% in those altcoins. Outside of that, another ways that I've hedged my portfolio is through masternodes. It's another great passive way of making money in the space. Also with buying different mining equipment. I've got S9 miners, and we also have GPU mining rigs. I like the GPU mining rigs just because they give you a little bit more versatility. If you have a project that's no longer profitable, you can easily switch coins from, say Ethereum, and, you can hop right into any of the other coins that are available. So I like that. And then also staking coins. It's a lower return, and it's definitely very risky depending on which coins you pick. But if you can get with, coins like Neo, and you can buy them in times like now where the market's really towards the bottom of the alts, in my perspective, you can really do well and kind of actually project those 8 to 10% returns that you can get through staking much more clearly versus trying to buy the top and ultimately being upside down in your investment.
No, that makes sense. Now, out of all of those strategy, is one a heavier weight in your portfolio than the others?
Yeah, I would say that I'm really getting more focused into mining because it's very passive, and it's very easy to kind of set up. And there's only a few levers that you have to worry about. It's either cheaper electricity, finding the equipment and being able to get it at opportune times. Bitmain for the longest time had the S9 miners for around $2,000, and we've seen them slowly kind of come off of that. Price. I think now you can get one for around $800. So, paying attention to different times in the market where people do not want to mine. Like currently right now, everyone's pissed off at the market because Bitcoin's been, crashing from 20,000 and went down to, around 6,000. And so everyone's like, hey, screw Bitcoin, screw crypto. These are the times you want to buy. So I'm expanding my mining operation now and what I do here at my home personally, and encouraging others to do the same.
Now, you've mentioned, I think you briefly mentioned on this call that you've got some previous work in solar. And you talked about, like, when you first got into mining, you had like a whole solar farm or something on your roof. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I was an executive at a solar company up in Connecticut, C-Tech Solar. And, the cool part is that, being in the renewable energy space, you're always looking for ways to help people offset, whatever consumption that they're using on that property. So in the headquarters that we were at, we had over 1 megawatt worth of solar power on the roof. And so there was, we shared the building with a large furniture manufacturer. And so there was a lot of additional power that was still going back into the grid. So, I talked to the owner there at the company. I said, hey, do you mind if I put a few of these miners down in the basement? He was open to it. So we had our electricians run 220s lines down to the basement. I hooked up 5 or 6 rigs to begin with. And there you go. I had free power. It was all solar power coming from the roof. So it was really a great time. And obviously that gives you the best ROIs because you have no electricity cost to subtract from your earnings. So it was a great way to get started,
Now, with you being in mining and you also being in masternodes and staking, the conversation of proof of work versus proof of stake has to be had. Sure. So what do you think is the long-term viability of proof of work versus proof of stake? And how do you craft your investing strategies between the two?
Perfect. Yeah, for me, I really like proof of work personally. I know that proof of stake has its advantages, and obviously it's less consumption from an energy standpoint. But I really like the security that proof of work offers to the network, and I feel that it's a much easier discussion to figure out how to get cheaper power and other ways to generate power than it is sometimes to secure a network in the middle of this technological age where there's hackers everywhere. So I really like the proof of work model, and I think that we can do better on saving money towards those strategies with solar and other renewable energy.
Interesting. Okay. Now I want to dive into some of the different things that you look for, things that you invest in, a little bit more specific. So I know we had a conversation about some of the ICOs or projects that you're investing in or looking at investing in. Of course, I have to remind the audience that none of the projects he's about to talk about are being recommended by any of our publishing organizations. Always do your own research, seek out professional assistance before making an investment. With that being said, tell me what are some of the types of things that you look for in an ICO or a project. And I know you mentioned a couple projects that you're looking at and or have invested in. Do you want to tell the audience about those?
Yeah, totally. So, on the ICO front, there's a lot of scams that are out there. So what I look for is real good use cases, and look for companies that we have already had an existing product that are looking to come into the blockchain space and looking to raise more capital. So those are, typically some of the indicators that I like to look whenever investing in an ICO. Some of the projects that I'm currently looking at, though, we have 2 projects that are here out of Atlanta Tech Village, 2 that are very interesting. One of them is called Supporter. I think you can get them at supporterinc.com. But they have a really cool way that they're trying to disrupt the whole nonprofit sector and bringing more transparency to the donation process. So you've got companies like the Red Cross and Cancer Society that have been kind of notorious for mismanaging funds, and not that it's necessarily like their desire to do so as much as it's probably just the lack of technology that they're using to see funds get from point A to point B. So you see a lot of just additional expenditures that are there that have been proven, and they're kind of working in that space. So that's something that I'm currently looking at investing into. They have a great project and great leadership, and it was already an existing nonprofit organization previous to, so they're kind of just making the transition into the blockchain space. Outside of that, there's another company called Javi. It's a wallet provider that's here based out of the Atlanta Tech Village as well. They're looking to compete heavily with Coinbase. So, Coinbase is typically kind of been the king so far of bringing fiat into the crypto world, but there's tons and tons and tons of complaints about people's experience with that thus far. Even whether it's your banks are not wanting to allow your checking account to come on and basically be compatible with their platform, or the verification process of your ID or your passports, and how confusing it is to take pictures and whether or not they verify them properly. And then some too. I mean, I've had several friends that have even went out and bought Bitcoin, and it's literally taken 7 to 10 business days on average, but even some that's taken as long as 30 days. They thought they had the coin locked in at a certain price, only to find out afterwards they were at a loss because Bitcoin price dropped. And then they still either confirmed the transaction, which would have fallen in their favor, and sometimes either voided the transaction, which fell in their favor. So I think that Coinbase really needs some competition out in this space. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that now with some other payment portals coming, in, like Abra, however you pronounce it, and others. But I think that Javi, they're looking to basically have, a wallet that supports multiple different coins and makes the transaction from fiat into crypto very easy. One other project that I really like, and I'll wrap it up with this one specifically, is a company called Symmetry. So they're out of California, and they have some really cool ways that they're looking to try to incentivize people, choosing to be more conservative with their energy use. So, how do you get people to turn off their power? And, and I think we've all been trying in renewable energy to make people more aware that they're using too much power, or that they could turn a light off, whenever they're not in a room. And basically what Symmetry has done is they said, hey, look, the best way to do this is to incentivize those people to turn off their lights. So they've come up with some really cool technology that they're currently developing that will be, just imagine like an iPad on your wall that will have a piece of software that would connect you and the utility company. And basically, like, the utility companies, if they ever see that they're at a point of like peak demand where they need additional power, they can literally send out an alert to all the customers on their network and say, hey, would you like to opt into this program and use less power, either move down to like medium or low usage? And if you choose to opt in, you can actually get, even 2 to 3x on whatever you would have paid for that power in a rebate, basically, kind of like fashion from the utility company. And so they'll issue that into a crypto token, which will go to a Visa card that you hold. So you can actually start to realize these gains and seeing how saving energy can make you money.
Without getting too deep into this, that last one, is that like a utility token, equity token? Like, how do you invest in that one? Because to me, that's an important conversation.
Yeah, I think that, right now there's definitely a utility portion to it. I think that they're working on an equity portion as well. It's still to be determined. I don't want to really say too much into the equity portion of what they're doing.
Yeah, it's hard because no one really knows how the fuck that's working just yet. And I know I'm not supposed to swear, damn it. Okay,
yeah, well, the SEC really just needs to kind of go ahead and give some guidance, to really help the landscape as a whole. And we've got a lot of companies that are out there trying to do good and really enter this space. But, if we can't raise capital, then, it really kind of hinders the entire growth here in the States. And it really keeps a lot of people that, we've seen that have made just, 10x, 100x, even on some of these ICOs. We're just kind of, we're handcuffed here. We can't even participate. So it's really irritating. So I wish they'd go ahead and put some guidance out.
Yeah, and I know, and that's one of our questions here. Like, what's your perspective on regulation in the U.S. where it is going? You kind of gave me your point of view on regulation, but where do you think we're going to end up with regulation? Like, what is the SEC going to decide if you're using your crystal ball?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not the answer they would like to hear, but I think that the longer that they wait, the probably less relevant it will be once it comes out, because you think about Bitcoin as a whole, as a network and a distributed network around the world, it's like they can try to regulate it all they would like at this point, but it's much harder to do once the network is already in place. So, I would encourage, obviously, I'm not trying to encourage anyone to do something outside of regulation, but hey, like while we have the opportunity to be building and innovating without the regulation being there, like let's take advantage of it, because I think that the more that we can put together now, the less hindrance we may have. But the guidance at the same time would be great for more investment capital to come in to help us do these projects.
Yeah, and I'm going to drop a little personal opinion on that one too, because I totally agree with you. And I think the bigger concern about it is that as these networks are being built out inside or outside of the way that the US is going to regulate them, other countries are jumping on the bandwagon and they're getting a competitive advantage against us. So like Japan has already said, hey, you know what? Well, you pay your taxes in Bitcoin. We don't care. And then China is investing heavily in artificial intelligence and blockchain. And really what's happening in this country is we've got entrepreneurs hustling to bring this stuff to market, but being stifled by the SEC. So dear SEC, we want you to regulate. Believe me, we do. We just need you to do it faster because we need that leg up to compete with China, Japan, Israel. Like you're costing the government money at this point. So get your shit together, please.
Yeah, definitely. Give us some like just at least make it clear. That's all we really need. If they can just make it clear so that there's, unmuddy the water for us, please.
Absolutely. Now that always leads to the centralized, decentralized conversation. Now, the way that I positioned this to you in the pre-interview was kind of like decentralized versus centralized, but it's not necessarily a verse. Decentralized is here. Centralized has always been there. My question is, do they coexist in any way from a business case perspective?
Yeah, I think they do. Really in the education space, I really wish that the education was more centralized and then distributed in more of a decentralized manner, or locked onto the blockchain to where more people can access it at any point. It can't be taken away from them. So I think they definitely can coexist for sure, but definitely, certain applications for each company that's using those.
Now, both of us, like my partner and I, John, from a publishing and education perspective, your team from an education perspective, I know we both have that mission of bringing more people into the market, educating them to be more successful. But how do you think we as a community can bring more people, Main Street investors or Main Street technology enthusiasts into this space? Like, what do we got to do?
Yeah, I think, it's just really education. And it's really the hardest thing to do. Coming from the solar industry, one of the things that we saw was that, people were finally able to, or open and willing to like go solar. But, as you're going out and presenting these options to different homeowners, you're having to deal with every objection under the sun, 90% of which were just literally misinformation that they heard from somebody else. Like, oh, solar's too expensive, or, oh, solar doesn't work, or, it'll take you 20 years to get your money back. Well, all of those things were true at a certain point in time, but they're not true today. And I think that that's really the biggest hurdle that we have is educating the public and really getting rid of the disinformation in crypto. Just like for myself, when I first went on the internet to hear about mining and heard all of these stories to say that it wasn't any good, but now you see some of the brightest minds in the world and some of the people with the most capital building the largest mining facilities they can as fast as possible. So who was right? Was it Google or was it Goldman Sachs? So that's what I would say is like the more clear that we can be in our intention to educate and to show people really how this works, I think we'll naturally bring in more and more people that would love to be involved.
Now, for there's a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines. They haven't dipped their toes in at all yet. There's some veterans that are watching this call. And for those of us that have been around for a while, we've got some battle scars. So tell me about one of the biggest pitfalls or failures that you've had in this space.
Man, well, I would say it was right when I first came in. You kind of wonder whether or not you're a little naive when you first get into this magic internet money, because all of your friends are telling you you're crazy. You're like, hey, look, you just put fiat out in Never Land and you're never going to get it back. But when you start seeing that, that Bitcoin price like actually gain in value, you're like, hey, maybe I'm onto something here. And so I think that's where it brings in like maybe another layer, at least it did for me, of naivety to thinking that maybe some of these other like multi-level type platforms that were out there that were like kind of centric around crypto or, things that ultimately ended up being just someone stealing your money. I got into a few of those things early, just being totally naive. And ultimately, that was probably my biggest failure. I lost a lot of Bitcoin there. I have a lot more today had I not been involved in any of these little sideshows you'll find on the internet if you look hard enough.
And then tell me about one of your biggest successes in the space.
Yeah, I would say that's probably been, the beginning of this platform. Like when we started this Facebook group, it really came from a point of I had a lot of friends of mine that were in the sales world or different executives, and they were calling me, asking me for advice on Bitcoin. So we really created the Facebook group specifically just to, kind of centralize the efforts of me trying to kind of help them. And so, now we've seen, our Facebook group has grown from a handful of people to a little over 10,000 people. We're influencing people in there day in and day out, trying to bring them, relevant stuff that's going in the market. And that's been great. Outside of that, I would probably say it's been several of my investments. I got into Bitcoin roughly right around $552. So I've done really well since then, just specifically in investing. But outside of that, some ICOs, when you get in there and you can really do some good fundamental analysis, I think that you can do really well in ICOs. So, Dragon today isn't the best example of where it's currently at, but the ICO, I think you got in around 6 cents and it went up to a little over $5. So, it was almost 100x on that
biggest
investment.
Win. That was our biggest win of all time.
Yeah, exactly. And so same here. And, I really enjoyed that. And I look to try to find more out there that are like that because I feel there's a few on the horizon that could do something similar.
Now, you don't have to name any names of coins or tokens if you don't want to, but of the top 10 coins today, how many will still be in the top 10 5 years from now?
Yeah, I would say that it's probably pretty easy to go ahead and count in, your top 5 right now as being there. I think, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, they're not going anywhere. I think that Bitcoin Cash, obviously, I feel that, they have the components, the infrastructure and the people and the mining background. They're not going anywhere. After that, I think it's really anybody's game still. We're still so early in this technology that I feel that with companies coming out literally every day and some of the brightest minds being attracted to the space, that we'll see some competitors for sure.
And one of my favorite questions to ask everyone, because I actually it's like almost a 50-50 split on how people answer this question, which to me is interesting. So in the industry, we often talk about the tokenized economy. There's two camps. One camp pitches their tent in, well, everything will be tokenized and there'll be hundreds, if not thousands of different types of tokens that'll be easy to interchange between each other. And the other side is that there'll be one currency, one digital currency, one cryptocurrency that you use to pay for everything. Like, where do you pitch your tent?
Yeah, I really think that there will be one that stands above the rest, whether that's Bitcoin or if it's Bitcoin Cash. I'm not really sure exactly how Ethereum would run in that, but I think that there will be one ultimate coin overall, personally. I think that there will be a lot of other different coins that will have the potential to play some sort of a utility. But I think that whether or not we have thousands or whether or not we have one is all going to be dependent on the SEC regulation. More regulation that they put in, I think it could, choke out a lot of the other altcoins that are there.
Ooh, interesting perspective. No one else has mentioned that how regulation could actually be a dominant factor in how that's played out.
Yep.
Before we jump into your free gift, I want to let people know about some of the upcoming speakers for the second half of the summit starting tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we've got my really close personal friend, Kevin Harrington, one of the original sharks from Shark Tank. We've got Peter Lucy, our CEO of Block Insights and a former Morgan Stanley broker. Michael Taggart, who was actually there the day I bought my very first Bitcoin back in 2013 with John Tarr, on a boat with a bunch of people running around naked in St. Martin. And then to follow all of that up, we've got Mr. John McAfee speaking tomorrow. What kind of crazy shit is he going to say? So Warren, in just a second, I'm going to have you tell everyone about your bonus gift. But I also want to remind everyone that you can own this entire training summit through our cryptocurrency training kit. This gets you downloadable access to the videos, audios, transcripts. The transcripts apparently are going to be like 4,000 pages, and bonus gifts of over 35 plus speakers, all for only $297. You'll also get a special bonus training called the Crypto Mastery Program, which we're producing right now. After the summit, the price of this training will be $497. So if you want to lock it in at that steep discount, you want to do that right now. Now, Warren, can you share a little bit of information about the free gift that you're giving everybody, which is the free membership to the Crypto University?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, I'd like to have, welcome everybody to come and join us on our Crypto University Facebook group. We also have a Discord that we've offered that's just kind of been a demand from the community. So more and more people wanted to chat and be able to talk more about trading and mining. And, so we have a free subscription for you there that you can join through our website at crypto.io. Outside of that, we're also offering some other special benefits. We have a cryptopreneur package, which is basically just more of a hands-on effect where you get a lot of time with just myself and other members of our team. So you can ask direct questions and get real answers. So inside of that cryptopreneur package, instead of it being a 0.03 Bitcoin, we're going to lower it for the next 48 hours for everyone in the Virtually Crypto Summit to where it's basically 50% off. So if you guys like to join us there and ask some questions, we're more than happy to help you. And that's what we're here to do at Crypto University. We just want to change the landscape, help people really learn how to be profitable in this space, and just demystify it, and ultimately bring just real stuff, cut the FUD out, and just let it be a great experience for everyone. So, and by the way, too, when you have McAfee on, you tell him that Jay Clayton's going to be here in Atlanta next week. I know he had some choice words for him. Being in the SEC this week on Twitter that I saw that was kind of funny. He says he wants to debate him on CNN. So, Atlanta is the home of CNN, but here at the Atlanta Tech Village, we're also willing to host that debate if he wants to come to Atlanta and
that would be interesting.
So.
That would be interesting if they would open themselves up to the barrage that is Mr. McAfee. So, right. Well, I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing in the crypto space. It is about education. It is about putting out the right information and making sure people are armed and able to build their own financial wealth. So I wanted to give you one chance. Is there any last piece of advice or information you'd like to drop on the audience? This is streaming on YouTube. It's streaming on Facebook. It's being posted out to Twitter. It's posted on our website. It's being recorded. It's broadcast out to over 100,000 people that have registered for this event. What's that one knowledge bomb that you want to drop on everyone?
If you do not have a strategy, you're gambling. And basically in this space, that's what you need to do. Have a strategy in everything that you do, and you'll have a good outcome. It's when you start to gamble is when you will have a higher opportunity to lose. And I think that's what you see every day on the charts, people that are gambling.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Well, thank you so much. On behalf of the Future of Money Summit, Warren, we'd really like to thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see everyone on the next call at everything's in freaking PST and I'm in Eastern. It confuses the hell out of me. So we'll see everybody at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Peace.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.